Pokemon. Invincible Me, stunned Cynthia. Chapter 41. Jimo's originally relaxed eyes suddenly became focused again. He narrowed his eyes slightly, and looked at the beam of light connecting the sky and the earth in the distance. There are a few small black dots, heading towards the location of the beam of light. Originally, there were just a few small black dots that could not be seen with the naked eye in the dark night sky. However, the light from the beam of light was too strong, making the black spots look like freckles on the white skin, which were extraordinarily obvious. As that? Garchomp. And who are the other two? Jimo's brows were furrowed, he could already see the real body of one of those black dots. Speaking of Garchomp, a figure quickly appeared in his mind, Sinnoh champion Cynthia. Could it be that Cynthia has come to Veilstone City? Is it because she knew in advance that we will take action here? Jimo thought about it, but immediately, he denied this conjecture by himself. No, it's impossible. Before this operation, I asked Porygon Z to block any information on Team Galactic. If Alliance wants to find news in the vast online world, it is undoubtedly a needle in a haystack. This is Jimo's confidence. In the online world, my own Porygon Z possesses the ability of a god normal. It may be difficult to deal with the entire Pokemon Alliance by itself, but if you just want to hide yourself, even 10 Pokemon Alliances, don't even try to find out. Besides, before tonight, this plan only existed in my mind, and the people from Alliance have no way of knowing. That's right. Even the executors like Zhengxing didn't know what they were going to do before receiving Jimo's order, let alone the people of Alliance. Coincidence? Or maybe it just happens that someone else has a Garchomp. Jimo frowned, quickly reasoning out one possibility after another in his mind, and then overturned it. In the end, he made a decision. Regardless of whether it is Cynthia or not, let's rush to Meteorite Park just in case. And the other two black spots also make me feel a little uneasy. Even if everyone from the Alliance is here today, there is no room for loss regarding Meteorite. Jimo's deep eyes burst out with a breathtaking brilliance, which made people's hearts tremble. The firm will contained in it, even the heavens and the earth cannot make it yield. His plans are not closely related to each other. It can be said that even if one plan fails, it will not have a particularly large impact on the whole. Because he knows that a plan that is too closely linked may be perfect. But if there is a broken link in the middle, it may lead to the collapse of the entire plan. In order to prevent this from happening, Jimo is planning ahead and making a plan like this one. Even if a few links are wrong, it will not have much impact on the whole. But even so, among all these plans, there are only a few that are absolutely indispensable. One of them is these meteorites who can manipulate gods. Jimo's lazy aura suddenly dissipated, and he stood upright on the highest peak of Veilstone City. Like a sharp knife out of its sheath, it exudes a breath of sharpness, captivating. He threw a Pokeball, and after the white light flashed, Garchomp's ferocious dragon shadow appeared beside him. The ferocious and domineering Long Wei was revealed for a moment. Garchomp. Absol. Set off. Jimo turned over and jumped behind Garchomp. The ferocious dragon of the earth was like a jet fighter, carrying White's air waves, suddenly soaring up. And Absol on the side was not to be outdone. His white and elegant figure jumped down suddenly, and the densely covered high-rise buildings in Veilstone City became Absol's takeoff platform. Looking from below, only a shadow of white can be seen, flashing in the dark night sky. And this scene happened to be seen by some people in Veilstone City, and they quickly took pictures with the equipment they could still use. Since then, the legendary about meteorite has been circulating in Veilstone City. When meteorite emits a beam of light that penetrates the heaven and earth and goes straight to the realm of the gods, the Phantom of White will come to worship Union. Jimo doesn't know that his actions are creating a legendary, although he wouldn't care if he did. Now he is rushing towards the direction of Meteorite Park. Where Jimo didn't notice, in the soaring in the sky not far from Veilstone City, a huge airship was flying among the clouds. It is obviously quite a huge existence, but because of the special coating on the surface and the specially silenced engine, it has not attracted anyone's attention, and it is completely hidden in the night sky. Master J. A dazzling beam of light suddenly appeared in front of us. In the control room of the airship, a Pokemon hunter quickly turned his head and said loudly to Hunter J, who was in the captain's position behind. I'm not blind, of course I saw it. Hunter J shouted angrily in a cold voice, does this person treat her as blind? Such a bright beam of light, but anyone with long eyes can see it, right? Can't you give some useful information? If you don't know how to distinguish the situation, it seems that you will have to change someone for this position in the future. Solaceans will determine someone's next fate. Hunter J frowned again and looked at the beam of light piercing through the clouds ahead. Even a well-informed Pokemon hunter like her has never seen such a sight. Where did that beam of light come from? Hunter J asked in a cold voice without any change in his eyes. Someone below hurriedly compared the map and said loudly. Master J, it was sent from Veilstone City in front. The specific location is Meteorite Park in Veilstone City. Meteorite Park. Ah. Jay's eyes hidden under the sunglasses showed a gleam of thought. Staring at the dazzling beam of light that looked like the sun in front of him, Hunter Jay's mouth curled into a cold smile. It seems that I know why our client would spend such a large amount of money to entrust us to obtain these useless meteorites. For those interested in collectors, a special meteorite like this that shines so brightly is worth the price. Immediately, Hunter J shook off the thoughts in his mind. She's just a Pokemon hunter for money, no matter what the reason is. For her, as long as there is money to make, it will be fine. Hunter J's indifferent voice sounded. Bring the boat closer. Such a large beam of light is too conspicuous. In order not to attract the attention of others, hurry up. Yes. Master J. The huge flying device made slight vibrations and hums, and then rushed towards the source of the beam of light at an even faster speed. And at this moment, at the destination of everyone, the location of Meteorite Park. Several people from Team Galactic swarmed down from the large transport helicopter. They held the machine in their hands and bound the transmitters one by one into the meteorite. And it was at this time that Zhengxing's voice sounded in the Team Galactic communication channel, which avoided electromagnetic interference through a special frequency. Target confirmed. Start recovering meteorite. The huge transport helicopter readjusted its position according to the signal sent by the transmitter, and landed accurately on top of meteorite. Immediately afterwards, the steel plate under the transport helicopter was opened, and huge mechanical claws protruded from the hollow below, grabbing towards the meteorite. In the distance, Maylene, who was entangled with her partner Xing Suixing, immediately became raged when she saw this scene. She stared fiercely at Zhengxing, and said with hatred. Why? Team Galactic. Why are you attacking these meteorites? They are the symbols of Veilstone City. Witness the history of Veilstone City, protect the patron saint of Veilstone City. These meteorites have existed in Veilstone City since her birth, and perhaps even longer. In order to protect these symbolic meteorites, Veilstone City even built such a meteorite park. Although with the passage of time, people have discovered that these meteorites have no special power, but in the hearts of Veilstone City people, these meteorites still have a high status. Many people put certain emotions on these meteorites, and some people will come to these meteorites to confide. These meteorites have been firmly integrated with this city. Maylene couldn't imagine what it would be like if one day Veilstone City really lost these meteorites. It was her dereliction of duty as the head of the gymnasium. She will regret it for the rest of her life. Lucario. Close combat. Luca. Probably feeling the emotion in the master's heart, Lucario also let out a high-pitched shout. Its vigorous body suddenly turned into a blue-black shadow, rushing towards Purugly in front. Close combat. As the ultimate move of the fighting system, close combat is quite powerful, but it also has the negative effect of reducing one's own defense and special defense. It can be said that it is a double-edged sword that may hurt oneself at any time, and Maylene has always used it carefully in the past. But now, she couldn't care less about being cautious. Oh, the little girl is angry, it's really scary. Looking at the angry Maylene, Huo Xing smiled and teased. But even if Power Trip doesn't care about it on the surface, a serious look can't help but appear in the depths of Huo Xing's eyes. Close combat is the ultimate move of the fighting system. It is powerful, and it does quite good damage to the common system's Purugly. If she gets hit by this close combat, even her Purugly won't feel good. So, play rough. Facing the oncoming Lucario, Purugly retreated instead of advancing. During half a month of training, the most important thing they have learned is that it is useless to dodge blindly, otherwise they will only be dragged into their own rhythm by the opponent. To fight is to seize any opportunity to fight back. Purugly sprinted towards Lucario, her fat body wrapped in fairy type's power, entangled with Lucario who used close combat. Can win. Maylene's eyes froze, revealing a little joy. Although the energy of the fairy system has a restraining effect on the energy of the fighting system, this Purugly is not a fairy system, so the power used will be slightly lower. And her Lucario is undoubtedly a fighting Pokemon. But, do you think I will watch from this side and let you hinder us? Sui Xing's indifferent voice reached Maylene's ears, instantly cooling down the joy in her heart. Her complexion also changed suddenly. Oops. She completely ignored the existence of Sui Xing just now. Because Sui Xing and Huan Xing were quite at odds, it was actually Huan Xing who was fighting Maylene by himself just now, and Sui Xing rarely participated, which made her ignore the other party. But when partner Xing was in danger, Sui Xing still had to take action. No matter what, the task must not be affected. Flamethrower. The energy of the fire type quickly gathered in the Skuntank's opened mouth, and scorching flames were suddenly generated, and then spit out violently. HMPH. You smart guy. Who wants your help? Huo Xing snorted coldly, although she was extremely dissatisfied with being helped by her deadly enemy, but knowing the overall situation was the most important thing for her, she just kept her mouth shut. Purugly. Ahead, Purugly's movements changed abruptly after hearing the order from his partner. He took a heavy punch from close combat, and then grabbed Lucario hard with his claws wrapped in fairy energy. Although Purugly was sent flying by the close combat, Lucario couldn't help but groan. Although it's not that the power of Purugly's own skills has been reduced, Fairy's play rough has a lot of damage for it. Moreover, it is not just Purugly that it faces. The scorching flame suddenly approached me. Lucario. Maylene's eyes widened suddenly, looking anxiously at the blue-black figure in front of her. That red flame almost swallowed her Lucario. Although Lucario started to dodge the first time he heard Maylene's voice, he was still a step behind. The scorching fire pillar instantly swallowed half of Lucario's body. Luca. Even Lucario, who had a resolute personality like a warrior, still had to grunt after being hit so hard. Blue-black's figure resisted the pain and retreated to Maylene's side. On its body, there are still some flames burning that have not dissipated. When the flames dissipated, more than half of Lucario's body was scorched black. Faintly, there was even a slight burnt smell. Lucario. Maylene's heart-piercing shouts resounded through the icy night sky. She ran over suddenly and hugged Lucario, her eyes were even more worried. Luca. Lucario's voice lost its composure and strength, and became extremely weak. The previous fight had consumed a lot of its stamina, and then it was hit by the fairy-type play rough and the fire-type flamethrower. Now it has been seriously injured. Giggle. Little sister, although your strength is not bad, but if you want to fight against our Team Galactic, I suggest you go back and practice for another 2 years. After defeating Maylene, the mood of the two was obviously quite good. Regardless of the grief and sadness in Maylene's heart, the two poured salt on her wounds heartily, venting their long-standing emotions. What the hell, in those half a month of darkness, who knows how terribly they were abused. Lucario. And Maylene, as if she didn't hear their cynicism, hugged Lucario's petite figure, looking pitiful. Of course, Huo Xing and Sui Xing are obviously not such easygoing people. TCH. Can't you bear it just like this? Then let me add fuel to your despair. Flamethrower. Sui Xing's eyes are ferocious, but this level of damage, how can it compare to them? The hot pillar of fire burst out suddenly, trying to swallow the weak Lucario and Maylene directly. And at this moment, a cold shout came from the dark night sky. Metagross. Flash cannon. A dazzling beam of light suddenly pierced the night sky. Head straight to the flamethrower's pillar of fire. The blazing flames didn't even have the slightest stagnation with the dazzling Orberg beam of light, but they were defeated by the opponent like normal. Afterwards, the beam of light continued to strike continuously, and the powerful energy made the ground tremble. The erupting air waves swept towards the surroundings, and the scattered smoke and dust obscured the sight. But now, no one is in the mood to pay attention to the smoke and dust on the ground, and everyone is turning their eyes to the night sky. Above, a huge Pokemon that looks like a fortress in Orberg is floating eerily in the air. That is. Sui Xing's pupils shrank suddenly, and his pinprick-sized pupils trembled. The flamethrower fired by her Skuntank with full power was pierced so easily. How can this be? You know, the current her and the previous her are completely two people. And what exactly is this Pokemon? She has never seen it. The huge Orberg fortress fell from the sky with heavy oppression. Its limbs, Orberg arms, can easily crush rock, smash stones. What the hell is going on here? Steven's figure jumped down from behind Metagross. He frowned, and looked around, seeing the scorched ground and potholes everywhere. It proves that a fierce battle has just been fought here. Even if he didn't speed up because he saw something abnormal here, then the little girl behind him might be about to die on the spot. After briefly reassuring Maylene and letting the other party retreat first, Steven looked at the Team Galactic and said in a deep voice. Who are you guys and what are you doing in Meteorite Park? Steven stared at everyone in Team Galactic. From his actions just now, he could see that the other party was definitely not a good person. And, when he saw the mechanical claw that was grasping the rising meteorite, his eyes suddenly became extremely sharp. That's Meteorite at Meteorite Park. Seeing that Steven focused his eyes on the meteorite above and completely ignored himself and the others, Sui Xing was completely furious. Even if you are powerful, it would be too power trip to ignore us like this. Although I don't know what the Pokemon behind you is, but it looks like a steel-type Pokemon, right? Then, Skuntank, flamethrower. Sui Xing's cold and beautiful face was distorted by anger, and they were ignored like this. She wants this handsome boy from a rich family who came out of nowhere to know what fear is and what regret is. A scorching pillar of fire was formed in an instant, rushing towards Steven in front of him. Steven frowned. In this world, life is paramount. Alliance has abolished the death penalty long ago, and it is strictly forbidden to use Pokemon skills to attack humans. Even when they are dealing with evil organizations, if it is not a last resort, it is forbidden to cause harm to them or endanger their lives. This is the world where life comes first. But, whether it was just now or now, this person actually let Pokemon attack trainers so viciously. Unforgivable. Psychic. A huge mental power dam gushed out like a flood, and in an instant a barrier of spiritual power was formed in front of Steven. The incoming flamethrower was firmly blocked, and Steven's face was flushed red by the flames, and he couldn't move forward. Give him back its flame. Steven snorted coldly. The powerful mental power was activated again, and the flame column of flamethrower twisted suddenly, turned into a U shape, and turned towards the direction of Skuntank. Skuntank. Sui Xing shouted in panic, but it was too late. The scorching flames overturned in an instant, directly submerging the figure of Skuntank, followed by the terrifying psychic like a tsunami normal. When the flames dissipated, the Skuntank, who received his own flamethrower and Steven Metagross psychic one after another, had already lost the ability to fight. Sui Xing gritted her teeth and glared at Steven. Her complexion was distorted by rage. She couldn't accept that she was crushed so easily by someone other than Jimo. Intense humiliation filled her heart. But, wait. Gen Xing's face was solemn, staring at the upright Steven in a fine suit in front of him. He faintly felt that the person on the other side looked familiar, and his aura was quite terrifying. He's strong, you're not rival. After handing the storage box in his hand to a Team Galactic member beside him, Gen Xing ignored the eyes of his fellow Star Rage, stepped forward 2 steps and said intently. Sir, although I don't know your identity, but this is Team Galactic's business. If you don't want to get into trouble, I still suggest you leave here. After all, I believe that no one will have an extra enemy for no reason. Zhengxing couldn't figure out Steven's background at all. He only felt that the opponent was very strong. In order to prevent any mistakes in the plan, he can only use the reputation of assist Team Galactic, hoping to scare the opponent away. But who is Steven? He's the Hoenn champion. It's okay if Gen Xing doesn't say anything, but once he said it, it immediately reminded Steven of what Cynthia said when they met before, and said in a deep voice. You are Team Galactic, the evil organization active in the Sinnoh region. There was a gleam of joy on Gen Xing's face. It was good to be able to communicate. This shows that the name of Team Galactic is still useful. But before he could continue to say something, he heard Steven say. The champion of Cynthia told me that Team Galactic is an evil organization against Alliance just like our Hoenn region Lava Team and Team Aqua. Although I don't know what you are doing, as long as I stop you. Steven's complexion suddenly turned sharp, and he shouted in a cold voice. Metagross. Flash cannon. A dazzling beam of light with a metallic color was formed in the blink of an eye, and struck towards the huge mechanical arm in soaring in the sky with lightning speed. How dare you? Gen Xing's pupils shrank suddenly. He didn't expect the other party to attack so quickly. What the hell is their Team Galactic name already so useless? Come to taunt when you come across one. But his reaction was still as fast as a machine, and he decisively threw a Pokeball. Bronzor. Protect. The white light of the Pokeball flashed, and a bronze-colored mirror appeared in the soaring in the sky, immediately setting up the protective barrier of emerald green. The next moment, Metagross cannon beam is here. A strong air wave swept across, and the wind pressure of the explosion sent ground's Iceris flying, slapping its face and rising endlessly. What made Gen Xing even more horrified was that Bronzor's protective cover had only cracked for a moment, and it was on the verge of shattering. How can this be? The next moment, under Zheng Xing's horrified eyes, Flash Cannon smashed Bronzor's protective cover fiercely, and bombarded the mechanical arm behind him unabated. Boom! The helicopter trembled violently, and most of the mechanical arm was directly blown away by this blow, and it was about to break. It's so powerful. Gen Xing's face is sinking like water, although in the real world, Protect can't prevent all attacks like bugs in the game. But there is no doubt that its upper limit is very high. And since the protection can be smashed so easily, it means that the level of this unknown Pokemon is very strong. Your Excellency, do you really want to be an enemy of my Team Galactic? After taking back the Bronzor, Gen Xing took out another Pokeball, looking forward to Steven and said in a deep voice. And just when Steven was about to say something, the ear-piercing sound reappeared. The ear-piercing sound of breaking through the air instantly attracted everyone's attention. They heard the sound and looked around, and saw a Garchomp breaking through the air and flying towards this meteorite park at high speed. On Garchomp's back sat a blonde woman, and in its paws, was holding Green's trash. Zheng Xing's face is weird. What kind of combination is this? Steven on the side is also a little weird, because the person who is coming from a distance is Cynthia, and the green lump on Garchomp's paw is his friend Wallace. As for why Wallace is rushing in such a way, Steven's eyes were subtle. He seemed to remember something. In a moment, Garchomp had arrived at the meteorite park, and Zheng Xing also recognized the identity of the woman behind it. He spoke in a heavy tone, word for word. Sinnoh Champion Cynthia. Gen Xing's face sank like water. It seems that this action is a bit not good. Vomit. After getting off Garchomp's claws, Wallace's mood was a little broken. Don't let Labor and management see Garchomp again in the future. After Labor and Capital go back this time, they must catch a fast-flying water-type Pokemon. This day can't be passed. His stomach churned even more, and he immediately planned to find a place to vomit quickly. But when he noticed that the people around him were looking at him strangely, Wallace's face turned pale, and he swallowed the gastro acid that had reached his throat directly. His face was flushed, and he straightened his clothes with a stiff neck. The head can be broken, the blood can flow, and the frame cannot be lost. Mr. Steven, thank you very much for stopping Team Galactic's conspiracy. Ignoring Wallace, who was desperately fighting back, Cynthia stepped down behind Garchomp. She glanced at the dignified Team Galactic people in the distance, and said sternly to Steven. Steven waved his hand to show that he didn't care. You're welcome, Champion Cynthia. Although I am no longer the champion, I am still a trainer of the Alliance. An evil organization like Team Galactic that violates the Alliance's regulations is what I should do. No more champions. Steven's polite remarks were directly ignored by Gen Xing. His pupils shrank suddenly, and his attention was focused on the keyword that Steven said. He looked at the handsome Steven who looked like a rich man in disbelief, and he was stunned. Was this man actually a champion? How can I be on a horse? Let you Alliance send out 2 champions to face me. Silently, Zheng Xing put the Pokeball back in his hand. Although he is very confident in himself now, but there are 2 champions on the opposite side. What a fart. Wait. Suddenly, Jen Xing seemed to have thought of something, and looked at Wallace, who was desperately tidying up and maintaining his image, with some doubts in his eyes. This guy, isn't he a champion too? No, 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 definitely not possible. Jen Xing shook his head desperately. He can't accept it. Stephen, who looked like a rich man, was actually the champion, which already surprised him. How could such a sissy be a champion? Team Galactic. Wake up. No matter what you want Meteorite in Veilstone City to do, but with me here, your plot will never succeed. After simply thanking Stephen, Cynthia looked at the Team Galactic people ahead and shouted in a deep voice. Her face is awe-inspiring, like a female war god. The icy breath made Wallace on the side look sideways. Although I have heard that the new Sinnoh champion is quite strong, but I did not expect it to be so strong. This momentum is even stronger than him, comparable to Stephen beside him. Stephen on the side seemed to be aware of Wallace's thoughts, and he said in agreement. The Cynthia champion's talent is quite excellent, and he has transformed this talent into his own strength. Talent and strength have always been two different things. In this world, there are only a small number of talented people. And among this small number, it is even unknown how many talented people, but in the end they were not able to effectively develop them, thus obliterating everyone. And only a very small number of people can transform their talent into strength, and finally stand on the top of the mountain named Trainer. And Cynthia, obviously, is one of those very Arnold people. Especially that trump card Garchomp. Even with my Metagross, it's just about siblings. As he spoke, Stephen glanced at Garchomp, who was exuding dragon power, from the corner of his eye. Different from the steady and thick Metagross breath, Garchomp's dragon power is fierce and tyrannical. But there is only one thing that is the same, that is a strong sense of oppression that touches the heart. This is the championship level, and it is the powerful oppression of the peak champion. Since the champion of Cynthia has arrived, it seems that we don't need to take action here. Stephen said in a relaxed tone, in the fight just now, he has already judged the strength of Jen Xing. Although it is not bad, it is still an elite level, and it is still far away from the championship. It cannot be Cynthia's rival. Wallace also nodded in agreement. The breath of that Garchomp made him startled, and he couldn't help but think of the experience when he was on the road before, and his stomach churned for a while. In front, Jen Xing, who was facing Cynthia's fierce momentum, was flustered in his heart, but on the surface he was still as stable as an old dog. Snort. Champion Cynthia, you are now so confident. Could it be that you have forgotten how badly you lost in front of our leader? Jen Xing said proudly, no matter what, the villain organization should have a strong character, and it must not be lost. Cynthia's breath suddenly stagnated for a moment, her eyes flashed, and she remembered the previous battle. No. That can't be called a battle at all. And the breath fluctuation at this moment was also caught by Stephen on the side. He and Wallace looked at each other, and there was a flash of unbelievable emotion in their eyes. This person with elite strength is not the leader of Team Galactic, but someone else. And even the champion of Cynthia lost to this Team Galactic leader. From the fluctuation of Cynthia's breath just now, Stephen and the others can judge that what Jen Xing said is probably true, and this is very scary. To know who Cynthia is, he is the same champion as Stephen, and they are considered the top existence among the champions. Even he, Stephen, is not sure of defeating Cynthia. And such an existence actually lost to the so-called Team Galactic leader. And according to Zhengxing's words, it was still a fiasco. This is very scary to Stephen. Doesn't this mean that the leader of Team Galactic can also hang him? Stephen can't. I will not deny my past failures, but I will not be obsessed with the cloud of failure forever. After the eyes trembled, Cynthia said calmly. As she said, she is not someone who can't afford to lose, who can't stand failure. On the contrary, the belief in her heart is extremely firm. Even if she loses, she can quickly walk out of the fog. Chasing everything is the beginning of misfortune. Everyone has things they can and can't do, and it's important to know that. Cynthia said calmly. This is a sentence she often said, and she once used such words to enlighten her friends. But now, she wants to give this sentence to herself. What a Sinnoh champion. Looking at Cynthia, who looked calm and didn't have any emotional fluctuations because of Jen Xing's taunt, even with Stephen's heart, he couldn't help but sigh in admiration. Yes, failure is not terrible. In this world, who can guarantee that they will never fail? Those who can come out from the shadow of failure are the real heroes. Although the champion of Cynthia is not very young, he is surprisingly smart. Is it worthy of being the champion of Sinnoh at this age? Wallace also looked at Cynthia in surprise. There are countless people in this world who are afraid of failure and entangled in winning or losing. But they know that winning or losing itself is not important, and failure is not terrible. Only those who can learn from it and improve themselves will be stronger. Otherwise, Wallace gave his best friend a thank you glance. He and Stephen have been friends for quite a long time. And because they are all trainers, they often exchange ideas with each other. But the number of times I have won is very few. If Wallace was so afraid of failure, he would have been driven mad by his best friend. Hateful. Zhen Xing clenched his teeth, showing unwillingness. He originally planned to use these words to hit Cynthia, and use this to find an opportunity to retreat. I never thought that Cynthia didn't even waver at all. Besides, he glanced around and said he couldn't make a move, but still made Metagross stare at him vigilantly, and his heart was even heavier. Although it was once, this is another champion. Surrounded like this, even he couldn't find the slightest way to survive. Tell me, Team Galactic, what is the purpose of you coming to Veilstone City? Why do you need to spend so much time to snatch Veilstone City's meteorite? Glancing at the transport helicopter overhead that was gradually taking back the meteorite, Cynthia and the others did not act rashly. After all, there are 3 of their champions here. In her opinion, these Team Galactic people have long been the shackles. The tone is now hastily taking action to damage meteorite. It is better to deal with it properly later. And your leader? Where's Jimo? Facing Cynthia's aggressive inquiries, Zheng Xing's clenched fists were covered with sweat. The pressure was too great. Not just Cynthia itself, but more importantly, Garchomp's fierce dragon power, and Metagross, almost ubiquitous psychic. Like 2 big mountains, he was a little out of breath. And just when Zhen Xing was desperate and couldn't think of a way out, another ear-piercing sound of piercing the air suddenly appeared. In the sound of breaking through the air at this moment, there was also a burst of light laughter. Champion Cynthia, although I'm glad you have such a sound mental outlook, but is it too much to be aggressive towards my subordinates like this? After all, my master hasn't appeared yet. Just. A deep dragon roar sounded suddenly. Garchomp's ferocious figure flew across with a strong air wave, and the air wave blew the clothes of everyone in ground to rattle. A white figure leapt down from Garchomp's back and stopped between the 2 parties. Afterwards, Garchomp's figure also fell heavily. The ferocious Tyrannosaurus stood behind Jimo, and the tyrannical dragon eyes stared straight ahead. In addition, a shadow of white drew a perfect arc in the dark night sky without making a sound, and lightly landed beside Jimo. Elegant and noble eyes stared at the people in front of them. Whether it was Cynthia, or Stephen and Wallace, when they saw these figures suddenly appearing in front of them, their pupils couldn't help shrinking suddenly. A little surprise appeared on the face that was originally calm and had the winning ticket in his hands. Cynthia pursed her lips and said in a deep voice, Jimo. Her eyes flickered for a moment, remembering the scene of the last battle. She was almost powerless to fight back, and was firmly suppressed by the opponent. But immediately, Cynthia's vacillating gaze became firm again. This time, she will never waver. Looking at Cynthia, who is quite full of energy in front of Shendu, Jimo can't help but tilt his head, a little surprised. It seems that Ms. Cynthia is quite confident this time. Have you recovered from the last contest condition? Certainly. Cynthia affirmed without hesitation. The me now is different from before. Even if I face you, I will never feel any confusion again. Clap clap. The crisp applause resounded in the silent night sky, which was particularly obvious. The corner of Jimo's mouth was smiling, and he opened and closed his palms. He was the one who gave the applause just now. There was a faint smile on his face. He didn't look like the leader of the villain organization, but the polite and handsome gentleman in the upper class. Jimo looked at the people ahead and said with a smile. Congratulations. Then, although I think you may not agree, but out of courtesy, please allow me to ask again. My goal has been achieved, and I have no intention of fighting with you. Can you please retreat? While Jimo and Cynthia in front were confronting each other, Wallace behind him was not idle either. Stephen. Did you spot it? Weird. Wallace nudged his best friend and said in a low voice. His eyes looked at the two people who were facing each other in front of him, and there was a strange brilliance in his eyes. Well, did you find out too? Stephen rested his chin on one hand, rubbed his chin and thought, it's not right. Yes, I think so. Wallace was instantly excited when he heard that his close friends had the same opinion as him. Now he doesn't look like an elegant world number one coordinated trainer, nor a Hoenn champion, but just a gossip common. Just as the excited Wallace was about to say something, he heard Stephen continue. Jimo is strong and the actions of Team Galactic are very wrong. It stands to reason that the Alliance should have investigated these meteorites from beyond the sky. Now that these meteorites are still here, it proves that the Alliance has not found anything abnormal. Why are they being targeted by Team Galactic? There must be some secrets that we don't know. The people of Team Galactic must have something special for these meteorites. They know something that the Alliance doesn't know. The more Stephen talked, the more excited he became, and his eyes were shining brightly. He himself liked stones very much, and even gave up his championship because of this, and even his own company ignored it. And the big event happening in front of him is obviously related to the stone, so how can he not be excited? The champion is precious, but the price of the family is higher. If it is a stone, both can be thrown away. However, Wallace, looking at Stephen, who was talking more and more excited, he helplessly covered his face with his hands, and his whole body became depressed. How silly of me, really. Knowing that this friend of mine would be particularly energetic when encountering things related to Shito, why did he think of talking about it with him? You know, the boss of Devon Company, also Stephen's father, Zifuki Mugen, has worked hard for the other half of his only son. But now Stephen is still single, doesn't that explain the problem? Even so, listening to Stephen talking, he also became interested. Since it can attract a lawless organization like Team Galactic that opposes the Alliance, there must be some unknown secret hidden in these meteorites. The unknown has always been the most attractive existence to Pokemon trainers. And this time, on Cynthia and Jimo's side. It seems that we can't just resolve it peacefully. Jimo said seemingly helplessly. Just now, his proposal to let the two parties stop at this point was rejected by Cynthia without hesitation. But the helpless emotion only appeared on Jimo's face for a moment, and then disappeared. After all, this was something he had expected a long time ago. Since this is the case, then I can only do it. What a pity, I am a person who hates fighting so much. And just when Jimo was going to use force to solve the matter and leave by force, Stephen suddenly spoke out. Wait a minute, this. Mr. Jimo. After recalling Jimo's name, Stephen said hesitantly. Huh. Who is this? Although Jimo had noticed Stephen and the huge and imposing Metagross early on, since the other party had no idea of getting ahead, that's all he wanted. After all, he just came here to find a few stones that no one wanted, so there's no need for side effects, is there? But now that Stephen has spoken, even if he wants to ignore him like before. Champion Hoenn, Mr. Stephen Stone. Jimo's eyes narrowed. Stephen's aura was too recognizable, and not everyone can have the aura of being educated in the upper class since childhood. Adding Metagross with a strong breath on the side, Jimo recognized the other party's identity almost at a glance. It's an honor Mr. Jimo recognized me. It's just that I have already resigned as the Hoenn champion. The current Hoenn champion is my friend Wallace. As for me, Stephen showed a hearty smile and said with a smile. Just a common trainer who likes rocks. Common's trainer will not have such a powerful Metagross like you, Stephen champion. Jimo's deep eyes scanned the Metagross behind Stephen, like a piece of Orberg, with a strong breath. As the quasi-god of the Hoenn region, Metagross is undoubtedly a very powerful Pokemon. As long as it is cultivated, it is the absolute main force. However, in contrast to its powerful power, it is the expensive cultivation cost of Metagross. It is simply a bottomless pit. In order to find and collect stones in various regions, it is also necessary to have a stronger Pokemon to protect yourself, isn't it? Stephen smiled brightly. You are not a little stronger. Jen Xing on the side slandered in his heart, what the hell is stronger? If it's stronger, can my Bronzor, together with the protective cover of Protect's ultimate move, kill it instantly with a single flash cannon? Nima's outrageous. If you are just stronger, then what am I? Garbage in the sewer. Zhengxing is crazy about MMP in his heart. If you're being polite, let's stop here. Jimo raised his brows and stopped to exchange pleasantries. He had to say that Steven really didn't have any faults in dealing with people. Even if the two of them are in an awkward situation now, it can make Jimo feel as comfortable as spring breeze. It can only be said that he is worthy of being the young master of the German company, who has been exposed to the existence of excellent education since childhood. Throwing all these messy thoughts out of his mind, Jimo looked at Steven, who was wearing a delicate suit and had a handsome face in front of him. Champion Steven, why do you have the time to travel across the oceans and come to Sinnoh? Could it be that the stones of the Hoenn region are no longer attractive to you? So far, see you in the picture. Jimo needs to make sure that Steven is here. Is he a foreign aide specially invited by the Pokemon Alliance Sinnoh branch? Jimo's eyes are deep. If Steven is a foreign aide specially invited by the Pokemon Alliance Sinnoh branch, it means that they are deeply aware of their own threats. Even if you let go of your arrogance and ask for foreign aid, you have to deal with your own determination. If that's the case, Jimo's eyes shone with a palpitating coldness. Then the plan needs to be modified a bit, after all. There are also differences between regions and regions. Hoenn region's status in Steven's heart must be more important than Sinnoh region, isn't it? It's not just that he didn't taste the tentative meaning in Jimo's words, or that Steven didn't care, in short, he didn't hide it, but said it. Have both. The Hoenn region has a vast territory. Even for me, it is quite difficult to fully explore it, but I have already searched for most of the secret places. It just so happens that my good friend Wallace is coming to Sinnoh to hold a coordinating trainer event, the Wallace Cup, and the location happens to be near Veilstone City. I just happened to know that there is such a meteorite park in Veilstone City, so I came here together. Steven didn't mean to hide it deliberately, firstly because it was his usual style, and secondly because he didn't have a bad impression of Jimo. Yes, although Jimo's current position is the leader of Team Galactic, Steven's impression of him is not biased because of the different positions. The German company he works in has been involved in quite a lot of aspects. Even his father may not be such a pure and clean existence. Therefore, Steven doesn't recognize people simply by their standpoint, and Jimo's impression on him just isn't bad. Coordinate Trainers Game, Wallace Cup. Jimo murmured softly, and the words reached the ears of Wallace, who was on the side, and he who was a little bored suddenly became much more energetic. What the hell is it finally coming to me? Jimo hasn't even looked at him since he came out, he feels ignored. Could it be that I, Wallace, am not handsome? I was able to fascinate thousands of girls before. Ahem. Wallace tidied up his clothes, coughed twice, trying to attract Jimo's attention, so that he found that there was a handsome guy here. However, Jimo didn't even look back as if he didn't hear his cough. Wallace. So you still ignore me? You did it on purpose. Mr. Jimo, as far as I know, these meteorites have been sleeping for thousands of years, and even the Alliance hasn't discovered anything abnormal about them. You will find them now. Could it be that you have discovered some secret of these meteorites? After exchanging simple greetings, Steven seemed to be unable to restrain his thirst for knowledge. There was a gleam in his eyes, he looked at Jimo with fiery eyes, and said impatiently. Jimo looked at the former Hoenn champion who showed his true colors, the son of the Devon group, and his eyes were a little weird. This Mr. Steven is really out of touch. If his memory didn't go wrong, he remembered that they should be opposing sides, right? Even so, Jimo did not directly refuse. He turned his head, looked at the pieces of meteorite in the soaring in the sky that were being dragged back to the transport helicopter, with deep eyes, and answered irrelevantly. Mr. Steven, you also like to collect precious stones. How do you think they should exist in this world? Is it unknown, like a dusty orb, forever silent? Or someone removes the dust and cover on their surface, let them bloom their original brilliance, let everyone know, and play their value. Steven frowned slightly. He didn't particularly understand what Jimo meant when he said this, but it still said what he thought in his heart. It shouldn't happen that the orbs are dusty. Just like I am looking for precious gems, apart from collecting them, I don't want them to just sleep in the darkness that no one knows about. Jimo nodded secretly in his heart, he was quite satisfied with Steven's answer. Then, he changed the subject, and with a smile of success in the corner of his mouth, he said suddenly. In that case, then Mr. Stephen, why are you here to stop me? What I'm doing now is just like you. Stephen's eyes flickered, and he had some guesses in his heart. You mean, these meteorites have been here for too long. They fell from the sky and came here long before anyone appeared in this land. For thousands of years, they are like dusty orbs, bound here purely as symbols, and no one has discovered their true value. Jimo's tone suddenly became a lot more passionate, and his open hands can make people feel the emotion at this moment. He turned around, looked at Stephen in front of him and asked with a smile. Mr. Stephen, do you think such things are allowed? Before Stephen could answer, Jimo just continued on his own. Of course not. This is a waste of their value. It's reckless. And I just want to wipe off the dust on the surface of these treasures, so that they will bloom with true brilliance. Since your opinion is the same as mine, Mr. Stephen, why are you standing here to block me? The fate of these meteorites is definitely not like it is now, quietly in Veilstone City for people to visit. They should have a more noble mission. When asked by Jimo, Stephen couldn't help falling into silence. Now, he understands why Jimo said that sentence in an unanswered question earlier. It turned out that at that time, Jimo was already inducing him and digging holes for him. Stephen couldn't help admiring in his heart. What a leader of Team Galactic. Cynthia will not be wronged if he loses at his hands. Although it is not yet clear about Jimo's true strength, but based on this alone, he knows that Jimo is not a simple person. After all, even he was overturned. Seeing the slight smile in Jimo's eyes, Stephen couldn't help but smiled wryly. Mr. Jimo, you are really embarrassing me. Hearing this, the smile in Jimo's eyes got even bigger. That's what Mr. Stephen really thinks, isn't it? So Mr. Stephen, what's your answer? In the winter night sky, the cold wind that was originally circulating seemed to be at a standstill. The eyes of many people on the field were all focused on Stephen. It seems that the negotiations have broken down. It's a pity, Mr. Stephen, we could have been friends. Looking at the few people with firm faces in front of him, Jimo sighed helplessly. That's right, just now, Stephen firmly rejected his suggestion. Jimo is almost doubting himself, am I not suitable for ignoring Hiroto? It was like this with Cynthia before, and it's like this with Stephen now. Should it be said that it is the champion of the alliance? Even the former champion is the same, the belief in his heart is quite firm. We can still be friends, if Mr. Jimo can give up his plan and surrender himself. Stephen said with a smile, because there is no direct conflict with Jimo and Team Galactic, and nothing too bad has happened, so now he is still in the mood to joke. If Mr. Jimo needs it, I can use the former champion of the Hoenn region and the status of the Zavaki family to help you minimize your sentence. That's really thanks to Mr. Stephen for his kindness, but I don't think I will ever have the opportunity to use your kindness in my life. Jimo's eyelids twitched. What's going on with this group of people? Everyone wants him to go to jail. Still thinking of using your identity to help bail him out. Impossible. Keep your kindness for yourself. Jimo, even die. Die outside. Jump from here. And definitely not going to jail. And the Wallace champion over there, you probably don't want to leave just like that. Finally, Jimo set his sights on Wallace, who was looking at the moon in the distance. Wallace was taken aback immediately, pointing at himself, a little unresponsive. You know me. Of course, while not focusing on the coordinating trainer, Mr. Wallace is also a Hoenn champion, so I understand. Whether it's past life or this life, Jimo knows Wallace. In that case, why didn't you look at me just now? Jimo. He silently looked away. Could he say that he did it on purpose because he saw Wallace's flirtatious appearance? Wallace. Now that he has fully reacted, his originally confused eyes instantly became sharp and murderous. Okay. I just knew that you were ignoring me on purpose. Really. Beautiful people are always so envied. Cough. Then, champions, although I don't like fighting, people living in this world often cannot act with their own will, so. Please be careful. Ignoring the murderous Wallace at the side, Jimo coughed lightly and his face became serious. Facing three champions at the same time, no matter how strong he is, no matter how confident he is in himself, he will eventually feel a little pressure. After all, no matter how you say it, the three people on the opposite side are also trainers who are at the top of the world. Genshing and other three people on the side. You don't like fighting. You fart. When you beat us up a few days ago, I clearly saw you having fun. On the other side, Cynthia and Stephen Wallace also looked serious. Although the latter two were not familiar with Jimo, they knew Cynthia. There is absolutely no weak person who can be the champion of one place. The eyes of the two sides intertwined, and a heavy breath spread on the field. Under this heavy pressure, it seems that even the passage of time has slowed down a lot. It seemed like a long time, and it seemed like just a moment. At a certain time, the eyes of both sides suddenly froze. Garchomp. Dragon's Claw. Jimo and Cynthia shouted suddenly. In an instant, the two Garchomps let out roars full of extremely ferocious and tyrannical dragon might. That roar, even in the meteorite park on the edge of Veilstone City, can be heard clearly in Veilstone City. The ferocious Tyrannosaurus rushed forward, and its strong feet fell down, making the solid ground tremble. Boom! When the ferocious cyan dragon claw collided, a powerful force burst out suddenly, bursting out a circle of white's air waves. The dragon eyes of the two Garchomps are full of endless tyranny, and the ferocious dragon claw is even more crazily intertwined. Green's ferocious dragon claw slashes with a sharp air pressure, and the sharp air pressure slashes across, even the ground is easily cut open. It's like being cut by a sharp sword. This is really, what a terrifying power. Not far away, Wallace's eyes couldn't help shrinking. Although he had been conscious for a long time, he knew that the champions of the Alliance must be quite powerful. But he couldn't help being surprised when he saw that Cynthia, who was still a little girl, had such great power. That Garchomp has completely surpassed his trump card Melodic. Compared with other Pokemon, Dragon-type Pokemon have various defects such as long breeding time and high consumption of cultivation, but their advantages are quite obvious. Dragon Pokemon are known for their physique, and Garchomp is a quasi-god among Dragon Pokemon. His physique is even more powerful. Steven's eyes were also fixed on the two Tyrannosaurus fighting in front of him, and he said in a deep voice. It's like what an unknown trainer in Kanto region once said, who claims to be in charge of the Invincible Dragon Legion, but is actually the Invincible Flying Legion. Dragons are the creatures of legendary, and while they are not easy to catch, they can be unrivaled in power when properly bred. Although Steven thinks that the four words, unparalleled world, need to be put in quotation marks, what is undeniable is that the power of dragon-type Pokemon is indeed quite strong. These two Garchomps, even in Cynthia and Jimo's team, are absolute trump cards. The reason why Cynthia was able to defeat Sinnoh Elite Four at such a young age and become the champion of Sinnoh Mightiest, her Garchomp is undoubtedly the biggest contributor. Her other Pokemon are weaker than Steven's first-line team, and some are only at the level of high-level elites. But this Garchomp is an absolute champion, enough to rival Steven's trump card Metagross. And as Cynthia is, Steven believes Jimo is too. At the same time, the battle between Cynthia and Jimo is intensifying. The eyes of both sides were fixed at the same time, and the piercing voice resounded through the cold night sky. Garchomp. Double chop. Boom boom boom. The dull explosion sounded endlessly. It was obviously just a physical collision, but there was a roar comparable to thunder. Under the hands of the two berserk earth dragons in front, even the air was compressed and exploded. Powerful air waves swept away frequently, and ferocious dragon claws crisscrossed in soaring in the sky. At this moment, around the two Garchomp battles, they have completely become living things. No. Be a Jedi of any substance. Because even if it is the hardest diamond, if it enters the battle between two Garchomps, it will be ruthlessly shredded by them. The ferocious dragon eyes are full of endless tyranny. Dragons are a very proud race, even if both sides are dragons, it's the same. They will compete with each other. Cynthia's Garchomp, who had previously failed, wanted to erase that humiliation, and Jimo's Garchomp also wanted to maintain his undefeated status. Roar. Rage's dragon chant resounds in the cool night of Meteorite Park. It seems that the champion of Cynthia has really absorbed a lot of experience from the previous failure and has made considerable progress. Jimo frowned, and looked at Cynthia with a cold and awe-inspiring demeanor opposite him in surprise. It is completely different from the last time we met. The current Cynthia can be said to be completely different from before. The command is faster, and the control of the occupation is more perfect. Let alone these things, even when speaking, he is calm and powerful. After complimenting Cynthia, Jimo suddenly shouted again without warning. Dragon Pulse. Garchomp Dragon Claw, who was entangled with the opponent, suddenly exerted force, and after slightly shaking Cynthia's Garchomp back, he opened his mouth and spit out a dragon light. The destructive dragon light rushed towards Cynthia Garchomp's face with a thunderous momentum. And just when the hit was about to hit, Cynthia's calm words suddenly appeared. Block it. Just. The sharp dragon chant resounded, Cynthia's Garchomp slammed on the ground with both feet, and the terrifying power made it sink into the ground with its strong hind limbs. Afterwards, Garchomp raised his arms, and ruthlessly blocked the two thick arm fins in front of him. Boom. The dust and smoke dispersed, the air waves swept across, and the manic energy of the dragon type filled the soaring in the sky. Jimo raised his eyebrows, his sudden command was actually blocked. Dragon-type Pokemon are especially good at physique. Cynthia, Garchomp's arm fin is the sharpest spear, but also the hardest shield. Having blocked quite a few killer moves, this Dragon Pulse will definitely not be able to cause any damage to the opponent. At this time, Cynthia's cold voice came again. Jimo, I'm not the same as last time. If you want to use this method to distract me, it's a bit too contemptuous of me, right? Now she is different from before. Although it is impossible to distract Solacean during the battle, it is absolutely impossible to make her negligent with words alone. Although the champion of Cynthia said so, do you care about letting go of the Dragon Pulse in your hand and forget to pay attention to your feet? There was a slight smile in Jimo's words. He admitted that Cynthia's reaction was quite quick, but he didn't pin his hopes on the Dragon Pulse just now. Cynthia's face froze, and she looked at Garchomp's hind legs. I saw that the originally solid ground had been replaced by quicksand at this moment, swallowing Garchomp's body downward. Sand tomb. Cynthia said in a deep voice, so the Dragon Pulse just now was just faint. Sand tomb. The effect in the game is to trap Pokemon in Sandstorm for 4 to 5 rounds, and cannot be replaced. Of course, the purpose of Jimo's use here is not to prevent Cynthia from substituting Garchomp, but to interfere with the opponent's actions. After all, the existence of quicksand is like a swamp. The harder you try to break free, the stronger the suction will be. Garchomp, sword dance. Jimo ordered in a deep voice, and then he looked at Cynthia opposite, showing a little smile. So, champion of Cynthia, what are you going to do? Seeing that the opponent's Garchomp had already started the sword dance, she had to concentrate on the sharp sword aura, while her own Garchomp was bound by quicksand and couldn't move. Cynthia's expression froze suddenly, and she waved her arms, without any panic on her calm face. If you can't hide, then don't hide. Garchomp, we use sword dance too. Cool voice, calm face, timely command. Now she is the invincible goddess of war in Sinnoh region. Just. With the command from Cynthia, her Garchomp also began to dance the sword dance. Garchomp's two sharp dragon claws are like a sharp normal sword, filled with breathtaking sharp sword energy. Then, at a certain moment, the sword dance of both sides was completed at the same time, and the cold drinks of the two also appeared together. Dragon Claw. Garchomp's feet stepped on the ground suddenly, and the berserk dragon of the earth galloped towards the ground like a missile, attacking Cynthia's Garchomp. The terrifying speed left behind a barrier made of dust. The ferocious dragon claw that shone with piercing blue light slashed down heavily. And Cynthia's Garchomp did not show any weakness. A ferocious and tyrannical light appeared in its dragon eyes, and its strong muscles were tense, and it also erected its dragon claws. It has to resist Garchomp's impact from the front. Boom. A powerful force burst out suddenly, and a terrifying air wave swept away. Garchomp's strength is already very strong, and with the blessing of sword dance, their physical attack is even better. The air wave that erupted was like a real storm, so that everyone around had to stretch out their hands to resist. And at the source of this terrifying hurricane, there are two ferocious earth dragons wrestling frantically. Creak creak. The collision of the dragon's claws staggered, making a tooth-piercing sound. The dragon eyes of the two Garchomps were also staring at each other closely. The tyrannical light seemed to tear each other apart. Gradually, the balance of wrestling began to tilt. Because Garchomp had a process of gaining momentum and accelerating, he gradually surpassed Cynthia's Garchomp in this power contest. Under the infusion of terrifying power, Cynthia's Garchomp couldn't help but lean back. It's a bit difficult. Steven's expression on the side was serious. Now, everyone has seen that the balance of victory is shifting towards Jimo. Although the strengths of the two Garchomps are almost the same, Jimo blocked the opponent's action with Sand Tomb first, and then the stockpile who ran from assist suppressed the opponent. Whether it's strength, or command, or this interlocking tactics, Jimo, both are top-notch. There was a gleam of surprise in Steven's eyes. The champion of Cynthia is reckless. Wallace also looked dignified and was suppressed. Cynthia is having a hard time this time. And it was at this time that the wrestling between the two Garchomps was finally about to decide the winner. The ferocious and frightening dragon's roar resounded through the night sky, and the muscles of Garchomp's whole body were tense, and his face was even more ferocious. At this moment, the terrifying power exploded like a volcano that had been accumulated for a long time. A black shadow suddenly flew upside down, and there were even some sand particles floating in the air. It was Cynthia's Garchomp. The sudden burst of powerful force even sent Cynthia's Garchomp flying. But, looking at Garchomp who was blown away by a dragon's claw, Jimo did not relax. He glanced at Cynthia who looked normal from the corner of his eye, and whispered to himself. I see, was this the plan from the beginning? Knowing that if I want to use my own strength to break free from the sand tomb, it will give me an opportunity, so I plan to use the power of Garchomp to get myself out of this dangerous situation. Jimo's eyes flickered, he had already seen what Cynthia was thinking. I have to say that this battle is quite bold. After all, if there is even a slight mistake in the process of wrestling, it will usher in a different ending. But danger and opportunity coexist. The effect of this battle is quite good. At least Jimo didn't expect it. Should it be said that at such a young age, he reached the top of Sinnoh and became the champion of a region. Whether it is strength or courage, he is quite extraordinary. Jimo had to admire the Sinnoh female champion. This seemingly reckless behavior is full of details. As long as Garchomp has the slightest hesitation, he will never succeed. Cynthia was visibly relieved to see that Garchomp had finally escaped from the restraining trap. After all, in such a battle of the same level, any small detail may lead to the root cause of defeat, not to mention that just now, it almost directly abolished Garchomp's feat. Immediately, her face turned serious, and she shouted in a cold voice. Garchomp, Stone Edge. Garchomp, who flew upside down, twisted his body abruptly, and forcibly stopped in midair, facing the ferocious earth dragon in front of him. The energy of the rock system gathered crazily in front of it, and pieces of sharp rock were formed rapidly. The sharp edge is so captivating that even Orberg can easily penetrate it. The next moment, countless sharp stones are overwhelming Jimo's Garchomp. Stone Edge. It's a good choice. Jimo smiled slightly. The overwhelming sharp rocks were like a hail of bullets, and they rushed towards him. Stone Edge, although it looks like a special attack from the current attack form, there is no doubt that it belongs to the category of physical attacks. And Garchomp is best at physical attacks. Garchomp. Dragon Claw, crush these tiny stones. Immediately, Jimo's eyes narrowed, and he also shouted at Garchomp. What about Stone Edge? He has absolute confidence in his Garchomp. Just relying on these small stones, don't try to defeat it. Ahead, even facing the overwhelming sharp rocks approaching in front of him, Garchomp's dragon eyes did not show the slightest panic. It's just some small stones, how could it make this proud earth dragon feel afraid? And after receiving Jimo's instruction, Garchomp exhaled a breath of wildness, and rushed towards the overwhelming sharp rocks ahead without fear of death. On its sharp claws, cyan energy forms the ferocious Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw. The overwhelming sharp stones that are enough to penetrate Orberg are really like small stones that can be seen everywhere on the roadside in Garchomp's view, and they are broken with a wave of his hand. And its figure, also among the sharp rocks in the sky, rushed towards Cynthia's Garchomp. Don't choose to evade but directly face up to the difficulties. It's very your style. Cynthia's beautiful eyebrows furrowed, and then unfurled quickly. She wasn't surprised. Cynthia has watched every Jimo battle video she can find. Although in those videos, Jimo defeated rival in a crushing manner, but his fighting style can also be seen. Go up if you can. If you can crush rival to death, you will never give rival any chance to breathe. Smash rival with continuous, stormy blows from normal. Even Cynthia's own fighting style is similar to Jimo's, being unreasonable and quite strong. Since we choose to rush over directly, then we can't fall behind. Garchomp. The dragon god swoops down. Cynthia's beautiful eyes widened, and that cold gaze really looked like a goddess of war. With such a gaze, she once defeated countless rivals standing in front of her. And finally climbed to the top of the Sinnoh champion. Just. The fierceness in Cynthia's Garchomp's eyes is even worse. Dragons are quite proud. It wants to tear up the dragon in front of it to erase the humiliation of its failure. A layer of dragon-type energy suddenly appeared on the surface of the arrogant earth dragon's body, and the cyan dragon-type energy enveloped Garchomp's entire body. In an instant, a more terrifying and ferocious giant dragon appeared in the soaring in the sky, rushing towards Garchomp who was attacking from the stone edge below. The ferocious dragon seemed to devour it directly. Dragon God dives. Jimo's faint voice reached Garchomp's ears, and a fierce light appeared in its eyes. It wants to trample this defeated opponent under its feet again. The next moment, another ferocious dragon also appeared above soaring in the sky. It's like the magic dragon Normal, who rebelled against the gods, and flew in the opposite direction to soaring in the sky. Boom! A strong air wave swept away, and the terrifying air wave caused the transport planes in soaring in the sky that had not yet evacuated to shake non-stop and almost lost control. Everyone on the ground can only rely on their own Pokemon to barely stabilize their bodies and ensure that they will not be overturned by the aftermath of the collision. All eyes are fixed on soaring in the sky, the center of the collision. In the end, who will win from this absolute power collision? Thanks for watching.